Hello, everyone, and welcome to another small screen. It's not. Fuck. God damn it. It's been too long. It's been too long. We're starting over. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tower of Babble podcast. As always, I am Julian Musha. I'm joined by Jeremy Cozier.
Hello.
How are you? Happy New Year. I don't think we haven't done a show since before Christmas. So, did you make any resolutions? And if so,
No.
have you kept them to this point?
There's no resolutions.
Do you think anyone does those like genuinely anymore? I know
Of course
this is a
they
thing
do.
that people talk. Okay. You know anyone who's done? Do you know of it
Not
like in
really.
your world?
Not really, no.
So, but you think for sure it's a thing that still people do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But okay, I just never. I don't know anyone in my life who's ever told me, oh yeah, for New Year's, I'm going to do this thing and stick to it for a year. And had them succeed at that. That's I guess the second part. I might have had the first, but it's rare, and it's certainly never happened that they stuck to it. Like for instance, I should probably make the resolution to go to the gym because I haven't been in the gym in like years. At least like I'm exercising, but I'm not going to the gym. You know what I mean?
Should probably do that.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, I haven't, but I feel like that's one of those things that people would make as their resolution. Gyms obviously see a big bump in their memberships in the new year, but I just don't believe in the power of committing yourself to something because I'm too weak. Like I will give up. So I don't know. I'm sure people can relate. What are we doing here today? The plan for today's episode is to do the Tobies. This is the prestigious 8th annual Tobie Awards,
No, it's
where
not.
we yet. What do you mean? No, it's not. It's not prestigious, or it's not the 8th
No.
annual.
All of the above.
Okay. Well, anyway, the point of the Tobies is to provide a venue for looking back at the best stuff from last year, which Jeremy really gives us the opportunity to talk about X-Men 97 again. So I'm not sure why you're, not that excited about it. But as per every year, it's a top 3 list. As per every year, Jeremy hasn't prepared one. So it'll be myself, and we'll be talking with Jeremy about these concepts together. Jeremy, we'll be talking about these concepts together. I'm not talking about you like you're not here. I promise. And it'll be a fun time. On top of that, the Oscar nominations just dropped, so I think we'll poke our head in and look at those for a minute. And Jeremy, good news. You can ask me what the good news is, or guess maybe what it is.
I have to just unmute myself there. What?
Sorry, I said good news because I already recorded a podcast today with the Daily DVR folks, Axel. We've been on his show before. He's been on our show before, and we did a top 10 of TV from 2024. So I won't spend as much time on TV. It'll just be mostly movies. Is that exciting for you?
Yes.
Okay. See, I knew there would be something that I could like.
Less
I
is
could
more.
grab you with. I think that's exactly right. Jeremy, you work today. You don't normally work Saturdays.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on working on the weekend?
I mean, the song pops into mind.
Yeah. Isn't that working for the weekend?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Right.
Still can pop into the mind.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I just want to make sure I got it right. I don't remember them being excited about working on the weekend, but yeah. Is it something that you would tell people that they should definitely do more often?
No. What do you mean?
Okay, I'm just checking. Maybe some people like working on Saturdays. I don't know. I'm just not one of them. I'm being a snob, Jeremy. Obviously, a friend of mine who works at a bank also works every 4th Saturday, and it's just a weird. I thought about it. I thought it was just a weird juxtaposition to think about like a corporate job, right? That also makes you work on a weekend, and it's because I've just been so trained as a corporate drone to not work on Saturdays or Sundays, really ever.
To not be working.
Just in general, Jeremy, is that you think?
Yeah. Until as of late.
Well, it's true. I was unemployed for 6 months, and I'll tell you this: that sounds nice, like as a concept, to be like, hey, you don't have to work for 6 months. And I will say, I got a lot of really good sleep.
A lot of people do that.
You are unemployed? Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is,
Trump has put an end to all of that in the States.
To people being unemployed, or people not working.
Something about they gotta show up to work if they want money. Something like that's happening.
Oh, right. Okay. Because I'm sure that's the biggest problem that they have to deal with down there. Yeah, that's a real bummer. Everything that's happened in the last 4 days. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of crazy stuff. Don't love the
people think it's the exact opposite.
Oh, people think that the threats of annexing another country is totally normal and super fun and awesome. Because I don't find that very fun or awesome.
Well, I wouldn't either if I was Canadian.
Right, but you are Canadian.
Yeah, so
it's not fun.
300 million versus 30 million.
Yeah, but it's not all the people. It's not like a battle royale situation. It's just more like, here's what I think about it, Jeremy. I'm not to get into politics, but it's like considering, oh, I wonder if this madman will ruin our entire life. That's kind of what it feels like. So, I don't know if you have existential dread on a regular. It's certainly been more regular for me. I don't love that. I think it's a net negative for my well-being. But I don't think it's unreasonable.
Like it's
yeah. No, I'm not good. I'm like, every time I open the news and it's like, how serious should we take Trump threatening to annex Canada? And I just I don't. It doesn't make me feel good. I was listening to it.
What do you mean? We're costing him $200 billion a year.
That's not how. That's not.
He
how
doesn't
it
need to be
works.
paying that. He said they got enough milk. They got enough wood. They have forests.
Right. So we're screwed, right? We were just we were all, me, you, Jeremy. We're just coasting on the U.S.
Told him behind closed doors that if he was to go ahead and do these tariffs, he said that Trudeau said,
I heard this. It's crazy.
Done as a nation or something like that. So and then he, as you know, I call him Governor Trudeau. And it's just so I don't know, that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, and then he's like, the funniest part of that whole thing, if it wasn't, so it didn't come with that like extra side of existential dread, it would be really funny. But the funniest part of that exchange was, he was like, and I asked him this question talking about Trudeau, and he said, I don't know. He's like, he doesn't even know.
Yeah, Trudeau
which is like,
is an actor.
Right, but Trump is a moron. So I don't believe anything. I don't take his word for how that conversation went. He would never.
He's more down to earth and less fake. That's why he's winning. That's why he's won.
He's less fake.
He's more.
That's such bullshit. He's more fake than anyone maybe ever.
You think Trudeau is less fake than Trump?
100%, because he's not out there telling people that they're that.
Get divorced.
He's not out there
recently. His family
crazy.
Home is falling apart. He has the worst numbers and all these crazy.
Right,
records.
He resigned.
Yeah, and then did you watch that speech? It was just a pure fabricated like thing where he's just reading these teleprompters, 3 of them.
Man, everything Trump says is a lie.
Left, middle, right, middle, left. Like, it's just sure. Yeah, I don't know.
This is great. Anyway, it's only going to get worse. So buckle up, folks. Let's talk about TV and movies and pretend that that's not all happening. Just quick couple notes. Follow us on Blue Sky.
Sebastian Stan win or get nominated for an Oscar for portraying Trump in something?
I don't think he. I thought there was some Oscars for that movie, nominations for that movie. I don't think Sebastian Stan got one. I thought Mark Strong. I know Mark Strong got a nom. I don't know who he plays in that movie, but he did get a nomination for that.
Sinestro.
But in the Trump movie, he plays Sinestro. It was a real twist. He's still a great choice for Sinestro. Like I feel like he could still do it. You know what I mean?
Did you see they casted a new one?
Oh no, I didn't. Who is it? Does he have a mustache?
I don't know. I've never really seen him in anything. I think.
Okay, it's just another like less known person. Generally speaking, we're not casting big actors for the DCU. That's not how that works.
No more money.
That's right. It's too expensive. That reminds me. There is a story that I want to look at. I found this Variety article about the new headaches for Hollywood and the burning questions facing Hollywood in 2024. This was written a year and a month ago, and I wanted to review it with you and see if they actually tackled any of these problems. And I think the answer is mostly no, but we'll get to that. Follow us on Blue Sky because Twitter and X is /X is too depressing. So Tower of Babble podcast over there, really fun time. As I mentioned, you can find me on the Daily DVR podcast, dropping probably any day now. Tomorrow, probably January 26th, if I had to guess. But it'll also be in our feed, so look forward to that as a rebroadcast. If you haven't done so, check out the small screen Star Wars series on Skeleton Crew, where we cover that episode to episode. If you haven't seen it, watch along with us. It is a blast. Star Wars has a hit on their hands. What they do with it, we'll see. They are in a troubling place. Other than that, check out everything we do at our website, towerbabble.ca. And if you want to help support the show, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/towerbabblecast. For every month, we do a monthly film club exclusive to the patrons. And this month, January of our year of our Lord 2025, we are going to watch a Christopher Reeve time travel film from Jeannot. It's probably Jeannot Swark. Every time I've said it differently. Please, someone tell me how to pronounce that name. Anyway, the movie's called Somewhere in Time. It's from 1980, and apparently has a really good score because Kojima's been listening to it on his Spotify. Jeremy, have you watched it yet in preparation for the film club?
Absolutely not.
Okay, me neither. Just checking. I was just checking. But
I think I saw it like I may have searched it on the TV, and then whatever
it's on Amazon Prime.
On,
I think.
Of course, you have to pay for it or something.
I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Whatever. But anyways, the movie itself is like playing in the background or like a trailer, and it just looks absolutely terrible. Like I don't know if that's like the quality.
Are you worried? Like it looks bad.
So like
okay. Like it
just looks like it was your high school like VHS camcorder.
Like a little muddy, maybe a little low def. I mean, I think there must be a 1080p. If it was filmed on film, which it was in 1980, then there's probably a transfer that looks half decent somewhere.
Yeah. It was just that autoplay feature.
I agree with you.
Very good.
It's like standard definition and concerning, but I think we'll find a good copy. Jeremy, next week is the last week of January, so let's agree right now. We're going to try to watch and review that movie next week. Deal?
I guess.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. If that's the best we can do, then I'll take it. Okay. Jeremy, I want to run two ideas past you. Okay, and I want you to tell me whether or not you agree with these sentiments, and if you care to, what you think about it. What do you think about the state of it? So, two things. This is looking back at the year 2024 in the rear view. Star Wars might say, "Let the past die, kill it if you have to," but not here on Tower of Babble podcast. No, we like to revel in the past because the future looks bleak and scary. So, I'm going to ask you a question, Jeremy. Do you agree that the theatrical experience and theaters in general are continuing to die? Did they continue to die in 2024, or are they pulling up from the nosedive? Are we looking up, or are we continuing to look down? This is really what I'm getting at.
Well, I mean, for our little city, it's down. There's nothing on the horizon. We already have our VIP experience in their IMAX.
We
There's
don't have a
nothing
true
in our
IMAX.
little city, but
Right.
who knows everywhere else?
Well, I don't think there's any I don't think there's a new theatrical novelty that's coming out in New York City and Los Angeles that's keeping theaters going that we're not seeing. The obvious exception to that is a true IMAX screen, which we did have, and I will never forgive the city for having failed it to a degree that it had to close. I wonder what happened to that projector. The true IMAX projector that they had. Anyway, depressing. We have one within driving distance, but it's far, 5 hours. So, anyway, no, I don't know. I look at this year and I think the theatrical situation is basically the same. The difference is, of course, Jeremy, and the slash film guys or the film club guys mentioned this, which is that the popcorn bowl situation really really shook things up in terms of the novelties. But that doesn't really matter to me at all. I will say this. I do get a little annoyed with Cineplex, the largest theatrical chain here in Canada, because they send way too many emails, like 2 or 3 a day, and that's too many. And it's too many by 4 or 5 to 6 a week more than I would like to see. And second of all, they made a big splash the other day, and it was on the radio. They're like, "Oh, we're bringing back the $5 Tuesday thing," because they used to do $5 tickets and $5 popcorns on Tuesdays, right? Well, it was only for a very limited time, and it was between January 12th and February 4th or whatever, because literally not a single movie worth watching came out. And I shouldn't say that. Not a single movie that is of wide appeal came out over that time frame, and we're still in it. Though I think the last free Cheap Tuesday is around. So at the same time, Netflix is increasing their prices. Shit's expensive. Movies continue to be expensive. Yeah, it's still playing. I guess you could go see Nosferatu. That's true. Is that a movie that you think would be worth going to see in theaters? I don't think you've seen it.
There's some decent choices, right? Sonic 3 as well.
Sonic 3 and Nosferatu, those could be more different, but I guess technically they're good.
I mean, that's good though.
They're good movies, yeah.
That's Barbenheimer.
Well, not. I mean, first of all, are either of them at either level? I don't think. Obviously,
Sonic's breaking some records.
Really? All right. Well, I'm willing to believe that.
For sure, franchise records.
Well, yeah, because it has everyone's favorite character, Shadow, in it, played by, of course, legendary Canadian Keanu Reeves, which is, I will admit, a pretty badass casting decision. And as in terms of I know they already have Jim Carrey, which say what you will about those movies, the Sonic movies, and the weird Knuckles spinoff on Apple TV, but or Paramount Plus or whatever it is.
But leave James Marsden alone.
Wait, are people attacking James Marsden? Not on my watch. Listen. I will admit I have made some comments in the past about James Marsden's Cyclops, but I think I'm just internalizing the whole shtick that Wolverine had. He wasn't as bad as I remember. If you go back and watch those movies, he does have a bit of the brown noser attitude though. But that's kind of part of the character, so you got to give it to him. He's really when I think of James Marsden, I think of Westworld, and he's pretty freaking sweet in that series. Although it gets really not great after season 1. Okay, so that was the first statement. I think theaters are in trouble. Largely speaking, my perception of the situation largely unchanged from last year, except for the fact that there wasn't that many big movies this year. I saw, I think, less movies in theaters this year than I have, despite the fact that I had lots of spare time, than I have in most of the previous years. And that's not ideal. Never mind the fact that, from a blockbuster's perspective, there wasn't anything outside of Dune 2 and Wicked that was considered to be particularly great, which is a shame. Obviously, because another slight against Furiosa, which is a really amazing movie. Anyway, I think it's more of a reflection on the state of the films. There wasn't that many good movies this year. We'll see about next year. I think this year, is looking up. Next year, looking really exciting. All right, Jeremy. Statement number 2. Are you prepared to agree or disagree with me? This is a mini agree or disagree, essentially. Also, are you still there?
I am here.
Okay, just checking your pulse. Okay, peak TV. We've been living in the peak TV world for years. I think it's over. I think it's officially over. I don't think it's dying or dead or almost over. I think it is over and dead. And that streaming as a business model killed it. And now we're into a very, much like the political spectrum and world that we're about to step into or already in, we're in for a very rocky road over this year and into the near long-term future of streamers closing down, prices hikes galore, more commercials than there used to be, and fewer seasons of shows, longer apart, and a lower overall quality. Where do you come down?
What do you mean?
Do you think TV is going to get worse? and do you blame the streaming
it's
services?
already pretty shitty.
Well, what makes you say
just
that?
The whole Hollywood system. People just got to make good shit, and sometimes there's some good stuff, but maybe it's more rare these days.
And you think that's a symptom of the Hollywood system, not the streaming service situation that we're in?
Well, that's all. Yeah. That kind of plays into each other.
Well, it doesn't help that you have
the experience, convincing someone about the experience, getting your ass off the couch, out the house.
Yeah.
It's coming streaming soon.
Well, you'd think getting your not having to get your butt out of the house would be good for streaming, but it's largely been bad for everyone, which is weird. I know we've talked about this a lot on the show over the last few months, which is just like how shitty the forward-looking situation appears to be if you consider that Netflix continues to raise its price. It did so again this last week. I don't know.
It's just really we just cry about this month after month.
Yeah, I don't know what do you do about it. I just don't know what do you do about it. So this is what I mean. I think we're in a bad state. I think we're in a bad state. My general sentiment around this is that I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, and I think that's unfortunate. But I also think that is probably true about a lot of things. Okay, well, that's depressing. Jeremy, here's a question for you then. What should we be looking forward to in 2025? What's going to get better? We obviously have a Superman movie coming. That's super exciting. Anything else getting you out of bed in the morning?
No, I don't have that list in front of me, so I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't even know what's coming out.
Well, we know Superman, and that does get me out of bed in the morning. I mean, not literally. It's hard to get out of bed in the morning, but
no, that's crazy.
you just wake up and just leap out of bed.
I mean, Lanterns is more exciting to me.
Lanterns is more exciting than Superman. Yeah, they're 100%. Related though.
Aaron
Pierre.
Lanterns won't happen if Superman doesn't work.
Rebel Ridge.
Actually, that's actually a good question, Jeremy. If Superman is a failure, does everything collapse? Does everything DC related collapse?
Yeah, I don't know. On Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, I'm losing my faith in how much Twitter has.
On social media, it's just different.
Yeah.
A lot of influence, obviously. We've seen it with this is what we've been talking about for years. Last Jedi, Snyderverse.
Yes, it does ultimately come back to it. Does come back to that, and that Jeremy. Here's something that'll make you feel old. Did you know that Resident Evil 4 is 20 years old?
Yeah, I did know that.
Does that make you feel old?
Because
it did.
It's the first thing that's ever made me feel old.
You say that, and I was genuinely going to say that
playing that damn game.
I was genuinely going to say that in an entirely honest and earnest way. That is the first time. Everyone's like, "Oh, does this make you feel old?" It's every time that someone said that, it's been no. But when they're like, Resident Evil 4 is 20 years old, I did have to like pause for a second and check my pulse. So, that crazy. Anyway, let's talk about.
It's not even like a game that's like in your like repertoire.
No, but it's so
list, which is insane, which is so stupid of you. But
it's true.
The game is literally still being replicated to this day. It's still being drawn from. It's still
That's right.
Influencing modern gaming until there's no end in sight for Resident Evil 4. That's why it's been remade a million times, released on everything, officially remade on iPhone 15. You know what I mean? I have my iPhone 5 or 4 with the original Resident Evil 4 iPhone version, which is hilarious. It just looks like an N64 version of Resident Evil 4. Right. You can do every single mission.
It is pretty crazy. I remember you accidentally bought a Resident Evil 4 playthrough, like guide app on my iPhone. It was like $5, and you're like, you bought it. I was like, what? How did this happen? Anyway, yeah, you bought. I remember that. That was really funny. Yeah, it is crazy to think about how.
I mean, everything changed with that. The gameplay and the perspective,
the over the shoulder,
sucking you right in, pinpoint accuracy, and then replacing like the jump scares with the intensity,
right?
The stress of managing
the gameplay instead of
coming
like,
at you, who are all smart now and can move, and they surround you, and the
one has a chainsaw.
The lack of movement wasn't an issue. It's like perfect control systems, gameplay, all these things, perfect storm mixture, right? Of this basically remade Devil May Cry game, essentially, is what Capcom did.
Oh, really?
Because there was many iterations of Resident Evil 4. There's like a famous trailer where it's like more like RE1 remake, like in a huge castle mansion, and there's like I think there's like a ghost element to some of the enemies, and I think there's still fixed camera angles.
So it's more like the new Resident Evil 4, or not? Maybe not the new Resident Evil 4, but the new.
No, the new ones are still like the original. No, the new ones are still like the OG 4s.
Okay.
Or the OG OG.
Well, I thought they were first person. I thought like Resident Evil, like the new
7 and 8, I think are first person.
Yeah.
Right, but the new ones. I mean, like we got a remake of 2,
1, 2,
4,
3,
and 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
and so,
and you haven't played the first person one,
the best-selling version. No, I played the new one. I haven't.
Oh, you have? Oh, okay.
I think I had a kid, a baby, right around it or something. But like the OLED came into play, the PS5 came into play,
and you're like, okay, I got to do it.
I had to upgrade my TV.
Yeah.
The Resident Evil 4 was on the way, so I needed the 4K player for movies, and then it's just been couple years of collecting those things
to never play them.
The chainsaw demo is like all I really need.
Right.
It's just like a diehard purist of the OG 20-year-old RE4. Like I remember being at the Superstore and my mom like having to buy it for me. I'm pretty sure being like 15 or 16.
Jeremy, the thing about Resident Evil 4, and we're doing a tangent on this, is we're fully in it. Is that I know that you have bought that game more times than anyone. I
don't know if that's true.
It's maybe pretty crazy.
Maybe, but
certainly that I know.
No, not really.
Jeremy, you've rebought that game. I don't know. It's got to be 10. Well, it's got to be at least 10.
Anytime you get a new console, you get a new console, you want to have that version on there.
Some versions you can't even play anymore.
Don't really. Well, yeah, that's why I mentioned the iPhone version as a kind of funny. Like I didn't beat that version. Like
no one would put themselves
the
through
game
that.
On PS3. I didn't.
Yeah.
I just when it was on GameCube, it was like that was my thing. I had the Wavebird. I had the black GameCube in the basement, just sucked in. Dude, I remember being in the store when we were buying it. I thought it was like it was so intense for me. Like all the
you still remember the emotions
and the IGNs and the electric playgrounds. There's no internet. There's no phones.
Well, there was
Well,
internet.
there was, but like I wasn't like tapped into it. I mean,
Yeah. Well, it was
so
different time.
like leading up, because like year 2000 and then all the way to 2005 is a pretty crazy. Like every year is a good leap.
For me, I remember distinctly the wait for the Wii, because obviously we had a GameCube at that point. The Wii's coming, and the internet was at a point where you could like kind of get downloaded trailers of things and like watch videos, but like YouTube wasn't really like as big as it is now, obviously. So that was an interesting time, to have the GameCube, to be in that that era between the digital like online age and like the more analog age. It's pretty cool.
For me too, with Resident Evil itself, the remake being my introduction, which is a GameCube exclusive, which is just a stunning game, like a masterpiece of the survival horror genre, and it's a remake of a game that came out a few years prior on the PS1, which is still regarded as like that system's like top 10, top 5 games, and redefining survival horror. But the GameCube one just looks so good, like with its photorealistic backgrounds, all the power focused on the renders of the characters, and just the mood and the fixed camera angles and just the sense of accomplishment and discovery, and success too, when you like solve things or you escape the mansion or you save people, when you figure things out, puzzle situations, inventory stress, inventory organizing, double disc on the GameCube too, so it's getting serious when it's like the game just like does a weird thing and it's like, please insert disc 2.
Right.
So I always loved that these Resident Evil games always had 2 discs for GameCube, because I was just used to like Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, Smash Bros, Luigi's Mansion, Double Dash, Metroid Prime, all these single disc games, and then the double disc I always thought was cool and unique. But then so for 4 to just be like the footage of it, like the environment, and then just being sucked into that third person shooting kind of mechanic looked just so appealing and exciting and like fresh. And then like I said, Gears of War came out after that, right? Like just so much. Even Uncharted, when you're shooting, that one obviously it scaled a bit further back, and you can see his legs when he's climbing and stuff. But yeah, just a 20-year-old masterpiece that it's just so iconic. Like,
There's
old.
not much. There's not. Yeah, it's old, but it's crazy to think that something like Resident Evil 4 can be 20 years old, because it still feels like it has some modernness to it, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Maybe that's just that, like, because we lived it. It felt new at the time. It obviously doesn't feel new, but it just feels like it feels still more contemporary than like what a 20-year-old game felt like 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's just like that, like classic. Like that's why like the OG era video games like NES, Super Nintendo are just regarded as, it will always forever be the GOAT, because the timelessness of the nature of just like the consistency of the look.
That's true.
It's like it's always
simplicity
fresh. Like,
of the control.
Like Super Mario Bros. Like controls left to right.
Yeah, up, down, left, right. That's yeah.
It's all, like the simplicity, and then just the look of the pixels and the pixel art. It's just so appealing. But yeah, obviously when you see it, you know that it's like retro or older. But with Resident Evil 4, just the textures and the look and the colors and the mood, the widescreens, you could play. It's a widescreen game. The framing, the music, the environments, castles, underground layers, islands, even the QuickTime events, like was like a gimmick of the time, but they just felt so intense, and like you're always like nervous to do them, and like it actually gets your heart kind of racing when you're just like tapping at things. Like,
What's the hard? What are the hardest QuickTime? Is it the fish?
For me, it was like the boulders that like those guys pushed, and then you gotta outrun
right,
it, and then you have to press the trigger buttons at the last second, or like A and B together. And if you press the wrong one, then it just like runs you over and you die.
And does it switch it up what those ones are, or is it always the same ones?
Well, and then the Krauser fight, right?
Right.
Super
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
cinematic,
Right.
you know, visually, like it's like a Kojima like section, like Metal Gear
Well, yeah, it's
kind of
complete. Like
heightened.
it doesn't control like the
So
rest of
good.
the game. It's just a
But
yeah.
what I was getting to is that everything is just so good, except for that gameplay has evolved and the movement, right? So RE4 was still so good with his limitations, right? Like you couldn't aim, you couldn't walk and shoot. So that mechanic specifically is added to these remakes
Right.
and freshens up that experience. But they went all in, just made a whole new game essentially.
Does it
For
feel?
2, 3, and 4.
Do you feel like
They got
you
new
feel like it
character
captures the
models.
feel? Is it better, worse? What? How do you feel like that comes across?
Oh no, it's totally on point, and it's different. And then sometimes like, oh, it's the same. It's like I kind of like that going back and forth because I think that's what their goal was they didn't want to make it like a one for one, which is also a little bit disappointing too. Like, oh, like I wish they used the same face character model and like, but like they're just trying to make that same experience, but today, with all video game sensibilities and all its influence since, and all its influence that's been tweaked and turned around and flipped, and then they're just trying to just pay its respect to that game and not just take that game and like put it on steroids or whatever. It's like it's kind of just like it's just like redone basically, but still familiar, but a bunch of new stuff.
Okay.
But then like maybe that's why I couldn't keep going with it. Like obviously life gets busy too, but it's like I'm so into the first one that like I got my fix of the new one. But like it's exciting that I can still jump back into it and explore the newness of it and move forward. But I just haven't been in a mode where I play games for like hours a night or whatever, or even 30 minutes. Like it's not a thing.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I've been continue to play Battlefield 2042 because I can listen to podcasts and I can really like zone out, which is nice. But yeah, no, I haven't been really playing games this year. Maybe next year, maybe 2025. Maybe that's the resolution I want to make, Jeremy. 2025, the year
Mario
of
Kart on
finishing
Switch
a game. I don't think I'm gonna buy a Switch 2 at launch. I think I was been thinking about that.
You just decided that. Good for you.
No, I didn't just decide it. I've decided it kind of like this week.
Yeah, you've been thinking good and hard on that one.
Well, okay. Obviously, we don't know all the details. We don't know the price, all that stuff. So yeah, maybe it's a little early to be making that decision.
I don't care about any of that. I just think it's cool that they just like nonchalant like just showed like new Mario Kart game footage.
Yeah, 12 racers. It looks exactly like Mario Kart 8, but like what else is it going to look like?
24, I think, is the rumor.
It's 24? I thought it was 12. I thought anyway, it doesn't matter. That's more racers, right?
24 is what they showed. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's why I think it's funny and good, and the way they did it, like because it's not going to look like it's
exactly
anything
the same
crazier than the other one, but it will when you actually do put it side by side. It probably will, because it was the Wii. Because 8 is a Wii U game.
Yes.
That was just basically ported to the Switch.
Yeah.
And so they could probably up-res some.
They released new tracks for it last year.
Yeah, no, that's the thing too, is that I bought all those. I was like, holy shit, I'm back into Mario Kart. But for me, when I said like I haven't played video games, when those ones came out, I did just boot them up and I played them all, but just once. And then like when they released the next one, like 2 or 3 months or whatever it was later, it's like I got a notification through Twitter or Instagram or something, and then I was like, okay, and then I plugged the Switch back in and got them. Because there's just something about a good like a Mario Kart experience and like something new about it. And then these something news were something old because they're all basically they're older tracks just redone with those graphics.
Yeah,
which is cool.
I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, a Mario Kart gets me a little excited. Okay, but I haven't played my Switch in a long time, and I'm not sure.
You're gonna have to look at your collection because I think you have my Mario trilogy that I'm gonna need.
I think I do. Yes.
Back at some point.
But I haven't played it in a long time, and although I would say, Jeremy, thank you for loaning that because I had a ton of fun, just like on Mario Sunshine, just
oh nice,
so much fun sliding around, especially in Delfino Plaza. The music,
2002,
yeah,
whenever that game came out.
Great time. That is a criminally underrated Mario game. I don't understand why it doesn't get as much like any love, but anyway, great game.
It was a little too different, a little too different. I think.
Yeah, but I mean the thing, you really need that like GameCube controller to really get the most out of the FLUDD, though. You know, so you get with the like
pulling those triggers.
Why do we not have triggers like that? I mean, I guess they're kind of like that now.
They have way more sensor. That one was just so obvious, like clicking it fully in, and then like the little bounce.
Yeah, but that click at the end was so satisfying. You know, so I want to go back to an era where like buttons felt more satisfying to push. that's my old man take. Okay, Jeremy, let's shift gears here for a second. I'm gonna read a couple bits from this Variety article, and you can just tell me whether or not you think that this is obviously prediction from last year for 2024, so we now know the outcomes. And I just want to get your take on this. So, okay, number one question from last year was, where are the blockbusters? Okay. If you own a movie theater, it's looking pretty scary out there. COVID's lingering impact, coupled with months of strikes, have disrupted the production schedule for major films, leaving studios without a compelling slate of blockbusters. Tiffany franchises like Batman and Avatar don't have sequels lined up for 12 months. High-profile titles like Captain America, Brave New World, and Mission Impossible 8 were postponed to 2025, as Hollywood's labor headaches intensified. A few sure things, such as Dune Part 2 and Deadpool 3, are slated to debut, but there are not enough big-ticket projects to calm jittery cinema operators. Of course, last year, few predicted the phenomenon that was Barbenheimer, so there's always the possibility that some upcoming movie, and this is funny, be it Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling or the Mad Max spinoff, Furiosa, will capture the zeitgeist in an unforeseen way. So, Jeremy, what do you think of that line of thinking from a year ago?
Okay, say the last, just give me the bullet points.
Yeah, okay. Well, they're basically saying COVID and the writer's strikes disrupted movie schedules and pushed movies that were supposed to come out in 2024 out into 2025. So they didn't come out last year. They're now coming out this year. And that it's possible that they weren't able to predict there being like a big surprise splash like Barbenheimer was. And they threw out the two examples of Fall Guy and Furiosa, which obviously hilariously failed. So, yeah, depressing on that one. Certainly 0 for 3 on that, but maybe they hit it on the other 2 points.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they were hopeful, I guess. I don't know.
Do you? Maybe asked you the question the wrong way, but I just think that we looked at 2024, and I think we looked at the slate of movies and we're pretty concerned. Now that we're at the end of it, do you feel like overall, my sentiment is that 2024 was a pretty down year for movies in general? Like, not just.
Yeah, I just think there wasn't as many.
Yeah.
And that's what's been predicted. I mean, right? Like Ben Affleck, right? All those years ago, like must be fewer and fewer movies. And we're in the timeline where that's being measured. What investments and what successes are they reaching, and why? And sometimes people try to replicate that, and it doesn't work. So it's just dwindling down. But hopefully, a lot of these people, like look at Timothy Chalamet, like he wants to just do passion projects.
Well, must be nice for him.
So funny. He's so young,
right?
He's so young at that age. He can just start saying that now. Like
I know what an asshole. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you think that we're in a worse time, like movie wise? Like, are we in a?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but like nostalgia, because of nostalgia and all that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like we might be in a dark age. Kinda. It doesn't. And maybe it's just that we're getting older, but
because Furiosa was the coolest movie of the year easily.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And
the conversation
that blankets the whole thing is the monetary success, and then the highlights of the critiques and whatnot online and those conversations and the consensus, and that just kind of buries it because the money wasn't there to back it up, and the theaters closed it out earlier, and in that time frame it is a bomb. But then you have all of these actors doing interviews for Variety on YouTube or whatever, and they're talking about their movies when they did some movies from back in the day and that bombed, that they had no idea or would reach the success that it does now, or the reverence to it like now, or the respect or cult following.
Right.
So like Furioso could very well be one of those movies where it just kind of stands the test of time. Like
I thought the original Mad Max was that thing. Like they already have that in the franchise. Already has one of those. You know what I mean? Like,
but I mean, but not for the franchise. Just as movies every year. Like if it was if it was a shitty year, look at that movie that we got that year that will be shared and remembered forever. Basically, like the sequences in
it'll live beyond whether it was a success as a box at the box office. But
yeah, it's just right now, Chris Hemsworth and everyone involved, they have to live with it as a failure currently, for sure. And then me and you as film enthusiasts and want to go to experiences like this, want to get transported, we know that was the one. And in our world today, it was voted that it's not the one because it just
people. I guess that's the frustration, right? There was, and maybe this is like an idealized like rose-colored glasses situation, but I feel like there was a time where like if something was good, it would still. And there would be the odd thing that slipped through, the cult hits, right? They were technically good, but not popular. Whereas now I think you can have a movie that's pretty good, like not just pretty good. Fuck that. Furiosa is a really fucking great movie. And it being good didn't matter. Like something else mattered. And I don't know what. Like Wicked obviously was huge, but musicals are always huge, right? But like, what is it about Furiosa that means that we can't get more movies?
We've definitely had this conversation before, though, too, right?
Like, yeah, no, we have. It's because we're in it. We're inside this. I think worse time to be a fan of movies. There's fewer, like you said, there's fewer of them, and I think in general not as good. Like, I mean, yeah, especially this year. I just don't think the highs were as high this year, and the lows remained equally low. Okay, so that's part of it. Okay, just this is one. I'm not even going to read this. But 2, will Disney get its groove back? In the year 2024, Jeremy, did Disney get its groove back? I'm sorry, I don't want to keep using the word groove, but it is what the Variety article says. Jeremy, hello?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
What?
I heard you go. Can you hear me? Anyway, go ahead.
There's just a delay.
Well, it's a pretty long delay. I don't. Yeah, it might be on my. It might be on my side. I don't know what's going on. Okay. I'll state the question again. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can always hear you.
Okay. Will Disney get its groove back, or did Disney get its groove back in 2024?
Did it or will it in 2024?
Well, the question was posed. The question was posed in 2023. Will it get its groove back in 2024? We're now in 2025.
What did it release in 2024?
Moana 2. There was a handful of Star Wars projects, Acolyte and the Skeleton Crew. There was a couple of Marvel projects, obviously Deadpool and Wolverine, and Agatha All Along, as well as I want to say one other. Oh, Echo. I think there's other stuff, but I mean, in general, what's your sentiment without knowing every title that came out? Where do you feel like Disney's at right now?
Yeah, Disney is just they're not doing too good. They're trying their best with all their money, for sure, spreading it thin.
You think in what sense? Like they're spending too much money on their stuff? I mean, I would say that's probably true, to be fair. The Acolyte cost $200 million. So did the Skeleton Crew. So did
They want to do, remember, Bob Iger, fewer projects, right?
Yeah.
They want to cut spending. And maybe a lot of these shows like the Acolyte took a lot of shortcuts. Who knows? Obi-Wan did, for sure.
Well, man.
They tried to pull
that's from a different era. That's the Bob Chapek era. Okay? Don't get your Bobs confused. Yes.
Yeah, but just these projects, though, they just don't seem. That one seemed like it was special, or like it felt maybe.
Yeah, it was. They could have been. They fucked it up.
Then just looked like complete ass.
It genuinely looks like garbage.
Frame.
Yeah.
Well, there's a single memorable frame other than like the flashback scene where they're in like the palace, like training or whatever.
The Jedi Temple. Yeah.
Like the palace thing.
Yes, I said the Jedi Temple.
And the stones. That is like the only memorable, and then like the final battle, I guess, with the blue and the red light, sabers kind of playing off their faces, and Ewan crying again, saying he failed him.
Yes.
But yeah, we've talked about this a million times.
That stuff is good.
It kind of sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it was way better when it was like Lucasfilm, like those GameCube games, like I mentioned earlier, Rogue Squadron.
Right. But do you think that's just nostalgia?
Sweet Star Wars video games. No, Rogue Squadron is so sick.
Yeah, I agree. That is true. That game is sick.
You can do all, dude. I played those missions so much, and I felt like it was in the movie. And especially the last one with the Millennium Falcon trying to escape is it the Death Star?
The Death Star 2? The Death Star 2?
Whatever the Millennium Falcon has to like get out,
like it just barely escapes.
The Death Star 2.
You gotta do like barrel rolls and like move, like just do crazy shit to fit through tight spaces. And like you're like, man, I'm piloting the Millennium Falcon right now. Like this is like insane.
So you're right in the sense that Star Wars video games are not in a great place, or Star Wars in general. And neither is Marvel, but I think they'll get their footing. Yeah, but if to answer Variety's question,
Marvel has some good stuff going for it. Deadpool, Wolverine obviously was a huge success.
Sure,
and we're talking about the future.
I think that's a mirage.
Jr., that's kind of what is?
I think Deadpool and Wolverine is a mirage. I don't think it represents the general.
Oh yeah, well in the MCU. Yeah, for sure, because it's because it was a celebration of the past. But if they're listening to those people moving forward creatively, it could be pretty sweet, especially with all these actors coming back.
No, yeah, I mean that's
being the finale of Kevin Feige's whole thing, like when the Russo Bros coming back again, RDJ coming back, not just Doctor Doom. It's going to be a whole different thing.
That also could be a massive mistake. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. Okay, so that's the only question I was going to ask you from the Variety. There's the three other questions that they have are dumb. So I'll just read them. You don't have to answer them. The number 3 is what will happen to late night TV. I have no idea what that's even in reference to. Number 4 is, and I don't even know how this relates to Hollywood exactly, but can the concert ticketing conundrum be solved? And then number 5 is which conglomerates will be left standing. Now that one does feel a little bit more like relevant in the sense that like we're all still surprised that Warner Brothers Discovery is still just continuing to be the worst as we go forward, but maybe not quite as bad as they were the last 2 years. So, there's something, I guess. Okay, let me quickly go through my list of television picks for this year. But again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I did go into more depth, and we do go into more depth on the Daily DVR show that I guested on today. So if you want a full TV discussion, you'll know where to find it, and it's over there. And it'll be in the feed, so just stay tuned for that. I'll post it. I'm going to read out shows that I watched this year. And, Jeremy, I just want you to tell me from that list of stuff that was available to be watched that I had on my television. I actually watched a lot of TV this year. What rank the year in television on a scale of 1 to 10? Like how good of a TV era are we in for the year 2024 based on this list. Okay? Feel free to laugh at anything that comes up that sounds particularly bad. Okay? I'll start with Echo. The Fargo Season 5, True Detective Night Country, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, X-Men 97, Fallout, The Gentleman, Blue-Eyed Samurai, House of the Dragon Season 2, The Boys Season 4, The Acolyte, Cobra Kai, which is getting into its final few episodes, Batman Cape Crusader, The Bear Season 3, The Rings of Power Season 2, Terminator Zero, The Penguin, Shogun, Shrinking Season 2, Lower Decks, its final season, Skeleton Crew, I said that already, I think, and Creature Commandos, What If Season 3, and Agatha all along. Jeremy, scale 1 to 10, how would you rank that collection of television shows?
I mean, it obviously sounds like a lot, and there's a lot of things there for a lot of people to get into, but it just sounds like a fucking terrible year.
Okay, Jeremy, I was expecting that answer, but I wasn't expecting it like that.
X-Men 97. Like, obviously, X-Men 97 is just like a diamond in the rough.
Sure.
Of this list, and is exceptional.
A gleaming light in the darkness.
But it's already been ripped out of our hearts with how the second season is not necessarily continuing the same format or with a creative team, right? With that dude. And then and then Cape Crusader, I haven't really given it a fair shot. Bruce Timm, obviously legend, love him, icon. The 90s cartoons are forever goated.
Right.
The first cinematic universe, essentially, or television universe, or whatever, of those characters. But that doesn't seem to have the same amount of esteem as X-Men 97, which I don't know why. I mean, I guess it's just so that's why I'm just it's telling me to not watch it, basically.
I think, Jeremy, that's actually an interesting, I think they're a really great case study. It's a great case study in how to approach a similar idea, but in
all
different
intents
ways.
And purposes, that project should be massive.
It should be as big as X-Men 97. Yeah, but it's not. I don't think it. I think it kind of came and went, and there was it barely felt like it made a blip on the
names attached
culture.
to it, let alone Bruce Timm, but for some reason attaching J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves. And then the Penguin too, right? Which is revered as the great. It's better than the Batman. I don't know what podcast it was, but someone was just saying how they're just so soured on the Batman now, which is kind of the sentiment I've been joking around with for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then even you watching it,
I fell asleep one time, and I will never live it down. Yeah, I know.
But then all the stories I actually heard in my personal circle of work friends and stuff, it's such a funny. But then being fans of Robert Pattinson, even Matt Reeves, and just a lot of the elements of that movie for sure. And then obviously Colin Farrell getting his due at the Emmys, getting a win, getting an award.
He was so good. That's so deserving. It's unbelievable. That show is very good. I put it on my disappointment list, but not because it's a bad show. I'm just annoyed that despite it being so good, they didn't have the courage of their convictions to even mention Batman as a character in the entire series. And I feel like that's something that you would have done 10 years ago or even longer, potentially, where you would make a show like this, a spin-off from something like the Batman, and then pretend you were too good for the HBO is too good for superhero stuff, and it's that rubbed me the wrong way. And I don't know, maybe that's not fair because I did watch every episode and I was gripped, and I thought Colin Farrell's performance was immaculate, and the ending is so strong in terms of establishing the Penguin as this larger than life character in Gotham. It's very good, but it's refusal to use the playground in that way, and it didn't even need to have Batman appear. That would have been awesome, no doubt, but it doesn't, Jeremy. It doesn't even mention the word Batman. Doesn't even come into. It's weird.
There's a lot of shows here where it's we didn't. It's not what we're asking for, And then you have X-Men 97, which like it is what we're asking
It's
for.
exactly what we're
And then you
asking
have
for.
Cape Crusader, which it is what we're asking for, but it didn't turn out to be what we asked, what we thought we wanted.
I think it can grow into that
like
though. It still has potential, Batman Creek Crusader.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, like some of the visuals and like some of the clips I've seen, like holy shit, that's sweet for sure.
It's so cool, and like I think the voice
all
actor's
in
really
all
good.
tied up, it just didn't seem to gain any traction like X-Men 97, right?
Yeah.
Episode to episode, that was like you unpackage so much from the episodes that were clearly a love letter to the old show and comic book storylines, and it was just so good. So
I mean, like the thing is,
Cape Crusader is Bruce Timm getting a second shot at essentially
telling that more adult
thing.
Yeah.
But then he gets to like be a bit more like wild with it, I guess.
Well, he gets to be more
it's
like mature
here and there too,
quote unquote.
Yeah.
But like, I think they can get there. There's some really cool ideas in Batman Cape Crusader, and I think the new Batman voice, he's really good, and it looks good. I just think they need to make it's a little bit boring, which I think is its problem. I think they need to make it a little bit more exciting for it to get there. And I was gonna say, like, I was gonna blame Amazon Prime for like not giving it like due diligence, like not giving it its due marketing wise, but like shows like Fallout and Rings of Power and
Fallout was a big success.
It's huge. So like those shows, I think like on Amazon Prime, I mean, we're able to find an audience, whereas I don't know why. Again, I think it just lacks that like spark. But again, potential for what it can bring.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, a good example of that too, like if you want to compare it to film too, like Lord of the Rings, like that shit is so iconic and maybe like the most peak thing ever in like cinema.
Yeah.
Which is like just being more like agreed upon as the years pass, which shows you that we're in the dark ages, because like at one point it didn't seem like that would necessarily be like peak. Like we just thought like, like
movies are going to be like this for an hour.
Things like they're going to be so sick and epic, and like we're going to line up in the theaters to see this midnight because it's this huge thing. But then now it just seems like it's almost like too try-hardy, or like the budget isn't there, or it's just a concoction. Whereas the Lord of the Rings was Peter Jackson and like Fran or whatever, and like these people who just like adored the source material and had this shot. And then all these auditions, like Elijah Wood, and like just everything just came together, and it's just like, and the strategy to film it all back to back to back, and then just like and then like attached to the old world of Hollywood with actual film.
Sure.
Just something about that texture and like that feel. This new stuff is just too clean and like. I don't know.
Is that about it. Listen, it sounds like we're being a bunch of old farts being like it was better before, but and like for as long as time exists, there'll always be people
all
like
the new great directors that we're talking about that are where's the Quentin Tarantino?
Denis Villeneuve is the closest one, but he's like more contemporary with the he's like
look at his I'm talking about like new, like I don't know.
I mean, you don't know them until you know them, but like they exist. Like I'm sure they exist. I think
but it seems like all the directors that are getting like their due, like look at Parasite with
Bong Joon-ho,
right, and then he's finally getting another movie coming out here soon, Mickey or something. Mickey 17. Robert Pattinson. I mean, but like we didn't like that was such a cool movie. Like that was his huge break.
Yeah,
and like that movie was. It's known, like it was a very cool, unique experience. But again, he's like older, like he's been doing it a while, probably too. Right?
But you're also talking about like okay, an Oscar Academy Award winning Best Picture director. You know what I mean? Like, there are going to be some of those, but like, are they getting the like same access? Like, or are they basing their movies off of what? I guess Jeremy.
But we also live in a world where it's where the world is just a vastly different place with how much content can be thrown up online.
That's
true. How you digest it, and what motivates young people as they get to those ages where they're starting to think what they want to do, what jobs they attain, and then like how are they creatively outputting that? Is it TikToks or Snapchats or Instagrams? Are they Are they creating businesses around that? Like, there's so many of these characters that we know about now that, like, the Logan Pauls and like all these other versions of them below them or in different scales of that hierarchy. Like that seemed like, and then like my nephews and stuff, like they're aware of all those people and like how rich they are and what they do. It's like, who's like, is a generation just like, are they like, who
We
are they and
lost.
like what
I
what
think we
like, do
lost.
they want to just like
Yeah.
share their version of a story that they know they want to tell in like a cinematic language type
Is it
way?
possible that we've lost an entire generation to social media that doesn't care about movies?
I'm not saying that's like
I think it's
100% the
possible.
factor. I just think it's a correlation of just like what's popping now.
Right. And it's not movies.
Like,
right. There's other stuff. It's more
yeah,
fragmented.
and then the other stuff is like, yeah, it's faster, it's shorter. It gives you those dopamine receptors, like it gets fed.
Well, here's the thing. You could argue, and here's a good test for you, Jeremy. Do you think the Dune movies, Dune Part 1 and Part 2, will be as held in high esteem as the Lord of the Rings movies are? Because we just got them. So they're like, they're new to us.
We would need the third one, I think, to really solidify that, because the business nature of Dune compared to Lord of the Rings was Dune had to perform well in order to get a sequel.
Right. Which is crazy because they released it on HBO Max.
They were already like gonna do it, but like it was like news broke that like they needed like that the anxiety over it was like kind of there.
Yeah.
Whereas Lord of the Rings, it seems like they just kind of like set out to just do like all three or whatever.
Well, they were committed to. That's true. I just mean I'm talking about more like, okay, let's assume the third one comes out and it's of similar quality to 1 and 2, right? Which I would say are of similar quality to each other. So Denis does it. It's another sci-fi epic success.
I just don't think so. I think there's just so many like threads with Lord of the Rings and like the characters and like the stories they bounce around to and like the places they are. Like Dune,
it's more relatable and understandable and more broadly appealing, I guess.
Like
but
the music, like the emotions, like the Shire, just all the teamwork with all these people. Like Dune seems very like, it's like very like Timothy Chalamet, and then like the supporting cast who have all like it's.
I mean, it's a pretty good cast. I don't think it's not just a Timothy Chalamet vehicle. I mean, obviously Zendaya, but like everyone else is great.
Yeah, no, like it's a really good, like they're all high profile actors. But I just don't see them standing anywhere near close any of the surrounding cast of Lord of the Rings, like, and what they accomplished there. But like, it's so hard to measure that without having distance.
Well, yeah, you need time. I guess I wonder if like
I would just say no.
It's hard. I guess
fair enough. I think there's really good moments and it's really good stuff, but I think Lord of the Rings is just more. I think there's just more fascinating stuff going on. Like, I don't know. It's like Star Wars and Star Trek. Like you have fans of either or sometimes some of both. I don't know.
But I mean, I think there would be people who argue. I think they'd be mostly wrong that like the best Star Trek movies are as held in as high regard as the best Star Wars movies, and I don't think that's true because like A New Hope
Star Trek
and Empire Strikes Back
on TV.
Yeah, exactly. So it's completely.
So
I mean,
it kind of just that's where the roots are. So it's tough to like just say that when those actors transferred over to the big screen.
I mean, those movies were big and those good. I like the Star Trek.
Yeah, they were for sure.
But
they're so old, like in those olden days.
It's a completely different world. I mean, I haven't seen all of them. I've seen all of the Next Generation.
That'd be so cool. Like you're watching them on TV, and then these actors, like now you gotta go to the cinema.
Yeah,
they would call it back then to see the same actors.
They would say while having tea crumpets,
and then they're rewarded with knowing the backstory, and just being fans of those actors and those characters. Like it's definitely cool.
I mean,
but for Star Wars, it's essentially just movies. Like we really strip everything away. Like it's the movies is where it all started.
Right. But I guess like
first three.
What's funny to think about is Jeremy is that like that idea to have a show and then take it to the big screen was like so successful for Star Trek. But if you think about it, like over the long term of Hollywood and television, there's like so few examples of, hey, this thing you liked on television is now a movie and come watch it. Like, remember, people were saying, oh, you know what they should do for the final season of Game of Thrones is just make it a movie, or the final like the final installment should just be a movie. And like, I genuinely think that would have succeeded. I think it would have been a massive hit. Like, it made $1 billion. I think if they like you to go to see the final thing.
That with Mandalorian, aren't they?
Well, I guess yeah, kinda. That's true.
And that,
but I mean,
that was also like a crazy storm in terms of like Pedro Pascal as well, right? Like his stardom just skyrocketing with.
I know, and now he's not even on set
with his projects, right?
Yeah.
Because when he was the Mandalorian, it was like, oh, we knew of his potential and like, you know what I mean, like his skill.
Yeah.
And it was kind of weird that he was doing the Mandalorian because he wasn't showing his face, but like, you get the sense that he's just a huge nerd and like he just wanted to be part of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And like,
it's the only thing that explains why he would
all
do
these other roles, and then Fantastic Four is this year, which is crazy, where he's playing Reed Richards, lead guy. So
what's crazy about that is that we actually had a Reed Richards cast in the MCU, and they're like, we're actually not going to go.
That's in a multiverse.
Yeah, I get it. I get it, but everyone else was like the same character as before. But no, whatever.
Yeah,
if they wanted to do Reed Richards, they could have brought back what's his name from the movies. I honestly couldn't tell you. It's not even in my data bank. It's not there.
Grufford. I want to say Ian Grufford or something like that.
I'll look it up.
I think I'm close.
What's the first movie? 2001.
That's OG Fox era. Michael Chiklis, The Thing. That's so crazy.
Pretty good though.
Someone's selling like a cool action figure statue thing for like $100, and it just looks like a perfect The Thing Michael Chiklis.
I mean, is it The Thing or is it Michael Chiklis, or is like that version?
Well, it's just they did such a good job of like just putting the makeup on his actual face, but like still his face coming through that makeup. Like the thing,
yeah, that's true.
The Michael Chiklis is The Thing, it's on par with like the Ninja Turtles and stuff. Like, right, like remember when you were a kid and you saw those movies?
Yeah,
it just looked like those are real Ninja Turtles. Like, okay,
yeah,
it's real tangible. There's no.
Hey man, those still look good to me. Like the Ninja Turtles. Like if you go back and watch that's like still looks good. Yeah.
So with Fantastic Four, obviously CG wasn't quite there, but it's almost like a disappointment when the character is like fully CG. You know what I mean?
Agree.
But it's almost like it's necessary because we need to have that scale and like scope in terms of that character compared to like the real ones or whatever.
I think it used to feel that way, and I think it feels that way when it's not done well. But you think of things like the Planet of the Apes movies, where the whole thing is CG, but it's like you don't even think about it. It's like, oh yeah, that's a talking monkey, and I'm 100% that's a real walking talking thing.
On the other hand, you think of like Justice League with Darkseid and Steppenwolf, who look fantastic, but you know that they're CG. But it's like they're just larger than life, and they're done well with their looks and their voice actor.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the secret is to make it work. Like whether it's like, does it need to be mocapped or not or whatever. I think ultimately it comes down to like how much money and time they spend on it. But you definitely know it when you see it. It's one of those things.
We're gonna get a sense of it with Harrison Ford, right? With Red Hulk coming up, Captain America.
Yeah, well, actually, we saw it in Deadpool and Wolverine when they did like the CG version of Wolverine, and it looked bad. So, and that was in the same movie where it looked otherwise looked good. Yeah, so yeah, I actually
enjoyed like the way the MCU does like the Hulks or whatever, like with Ruffalo being like
it just looks like a big version of Mark Ruffalo. Yeah, I agree.
And then, like I said, with Harrison Ford coming up here with Red Hulk.
Okay, so Jeremy, what was the name of the guest for who played Reed Richards again?
Ian Grufford.
Yes, correct. Ian Grufford. A weird spelling for Ian. IOAN. Ian Grufford. So I couldn't tell you a single movie he was in.
Jessica Alba.
Yeah, Jessica Alba. Another great pick. Chris Evans, obviously. Who does reprise his role in a twist. Spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. Okay. Here are my top 3. If you want to hear my top 10, you got to listen to the Daily DVR podcast. My top 3, starting from number 3, for this year 2024, The Gentleman, the Netflix Guy Ritchie film spin-off. It's like, it's not a sequel to the movie. It's not clear if it's even in like a remake of it. It's just same title, same concept, different characters. So it stars the new hotness, or one of the new hotness in Hollywood, Theo James, as the main character here, who has been getting a lot of heat around heat in a good way. This is not like, people are talking a lot about him for the next James Bond, and I am here to tell you that if I could cast a vote, I would cast a vote for Theo James. And Jeremy, where are you been paying attention to the James Bond? Who's the next James Bond scuttlebutt as of late?
I thought it was Aaron Taylor Johnson.
I don't think there's certainly not been any. No decision has been made
Maybe
yet.
that was
Broccoli's
like
have to decide.
Maybe it was like a sequence of dreams I had where that was happening. I could have sworn it was like this official thing, like credible people said that he signed on or something like that.
Really? Well, I'll tell you this. I don't want any part of Aaron Taylor Johnson as the next James Bond. I don't want it.
Really?
I don't want it. No.
He's so good. He's so physical. He's so strong. He can just do backflips, like just standing there.
That's really cool. I don't need that from James Bond. But anyway, if you, Jeremy, I know you like Guy Ritchie. I would really recommend you watch this show. It's like, just watch the first episode. I don't know if you have Netflix,
I don't even know what the title of the show is called.
Okay, The Gentleman, a Guy Ritchie series, as it's titled on Netflix. It's just got all of the shit that Guy Ritchie does in packaged up into I think 10 1-hour episodes, and he directs some of them, not all of them, but the tone is consistent throughout the entire thing. It's really funny. The action is exciting. It's got that propulsive feeling that Guy Ritchie movies have. Really fun, needle drops, and a killer cast. I mean, I've already mentioned Theo James, but you also have Vinnie Jones playing a kind of really understated role. Really sick. You have Giancarlo Esposito here. He kind of plays like this, he's a bit of a villain, so shocker, but it's kind of because everyone is a drug dealing kind of bad person as per Guy Ritchie movies. It kind of all fits anyway, so it doesn't feel that much worse than anyone else. The female lead, Kaya Scodelario, plays Susie. She's really freaking good in this too. I just like his brother Daniel Ings. There's just such great character dynamics. It's so fun. This is I cannot recommend The Gentleman high enough. Anyways, that's number 3. Number 2, Rings of Power season 2. Just so epic. I know, Jeremy, I feel like you were touching on this before. It's it just doesn't have the same. It's just not going to have the same gleam as the original movies. It just never will. I think it's a mistake to try to even compare it to the movies, because it's playing in the same sandbox. It's tough because the show certainly uses the movie's visual language to its own benefit. It wants you to think that it's in the same world as the movies are set, which fair enough. I'm not gonna begrudge it for that, but I just think it's not necessarily doing itself a lot of favors by putting itself up to be compared with some of the best things ever made, right? So on that front, could be better, but I think generally my sentiment on this is I don't want to try to compare it to the movies because it's doing something very different. And I think it's just a lot of fun to be back in Middle Earth. And I think I said this last, for the first season when it premiered, and this one too. It's leaps and bounds better than the first season. You get to watch Sauron creating the Rings of Power, which is awesome. Then you get to see them influencing the people of Middle Earth and how they, how it started the first War of the Rings, right? All this stuff is coming into place. And sure, it feels rushed comparatively to the 1,000-page book, but and it doesn't take it. The series isn't set over 10,000 years or whatever like the original story is, but it doesn't matter because it's fun to be with these characters. It's visualized really well. You can see the money on the screen. I really like it. So Rings of Power season 2. And then, Jeremy, maybe no surprise to you, but my number 1 pick for my favorite show of last year is X-Men 97, because when I sat down and looked at all those shows that I watched, nothing had that level of excitement that X-Men 97 had attached to it, and then nothing even approached the ability to not meet my expectations, but pass them by 1,000 miles. Like, it's just so much better than I ever could have expected or hoped that it would be. That I am so it's one of those rare examples that you're just happy it exists. Like, if we never got another episode of X-Men 97, you'd be like, I'm just glad that we got these ones. You know what I mean? So yeah, X-Men 97 is, and for me especially, it's the Magneto of it all that really, really, really works. I mean, obviously there's lots of cool stuff like the Nightcrawler Wolverine fight and all that stuff is awesome, and the big Gambit moment, obviously badass. But everything to do with Magneto, especially the Rogue Magneto and Gambit love triangle stuff, really worked for me. And I think when you look at, we talked about at the beginning of the show just how shitty the world seems to be in this current exact moment. X-Men 97 is like examining those concepts in such a real way, in such a powerful, impactful way that I just was stunned. That scene where Magneto's like talking to the UN is like etched into my brain. So yeah. Is there anything, Jeremy, you'd like to add about X-Men 97?
No, you can just listen to whatever episode
that we talked about
it at great length.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a masterpiece essentially.
Okay, so in that case, again, I'm not gonna linger here. Let's turn the page over to movies. And Jeremy, again, I'm gonna read a list of the movies that I saw this year. And I want you to, again, just give your sense of like, well, how do you think movies did in the year 2024? Okay. So, and this is we start with this first one, and I genuinely have to remind you that this movie came out in 2024. Okay. Aquaman and the Lost City, which I forgot that movie existed. I'm sorry.
So much.
I'm so sorry to that movie. I genuinely like the first Aquaman, and Aquaman and the Lost City is not that bad, but I forgot that movie existed up until I went back at my list and I was like, wait a minute, what? Anyway, Aquaman and the Lost City, Dune Part 2, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, Roadhouse, the Amazon Prime original, Civil War, Rebel Moon Part 2, Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1 and Part 3, Part 2 and Part 3. Those movies are brutally bad. They're so fucking bad. I can't get over how fucking bad those movies are. It drives me nuts just to think about it. What a waste of an opportunity. Anyway, Deadpool and Wolverine, The Fall Guy, Furiosa, A Mad Max Saga, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Twisters, Alien Romulus, Hitman, Transformers 1, Megalopolis, Joker Folie à Deux, Gladiator 2, Conclave, and then I added this one here for you, Jeremy, because I haven't actually seen it, but I know you did. But Rebel Ridge is also in there. So what do you think about that year in film? At least seen through the eyes of me.
Yeah, there's some pretty good ones in there.
You think, we talked about this at the top, we didn't have a lot of huge, big, massive hits this year. I think that's largely true. But the quality was, as I said before, good, not great. I think we didn't hit some, the Dune Part 2, I will admit, pretty great movie. And so was Furiosa. And there are some really high highs everywhere else. But I just feel like we're a few years removed from, I think ultimately still anything before. We haven't really had a amazing year in movies since before COVID, basically, I feel like. Am I misremembering? Or do you think that's accurate?
Could be accurate.
It could be accurate. Okay, here's my top 3. Okay, I'll mention my disappointments and honorable mentions first. So, disappointed in everyone who didn't see Furiosa. I'm very disappointed in you all for not going to see that movie and making it a failure. I'm so pissed off, angry about it, that I included Furiosa on my disappointed because I'm mad at you all for not seeing it. I'm disappointed in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom for being so bland that I forgot it existed. As I mentioned, I'm disappointed in Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2 and 3 because it's maybe an example of how maybe unadaptable that story is ultimately to a big screen, but also a great example of what the DC animated movies can be at their worst, which is like completely plot-based and lacks any characterization whatsoever, to the point where it becomes just, you can become confused about what you're watching, where it really relies on your ability to like, hey, remember this from the comics? And there was a time when the DC movies were really bad for being like a mishmash of plot-heavy garbage because it was pulling the story directly from a comic book page, not adapting it whatsoever, and being, I think, ultimately hurt from it. This is like the exact worst case scenario in terms of like what you can do with like a weighty story like Crisis on Infinite Earths is completely waste any. There's no emotion in these movies whatsoever. They're completely devoid of any emotional stakes, and it's like we're dealing with the end of universes and entire worlds being wiped away, and it's like you could not give a shit. So anyway, it's unfortunate. I'm disappointed in Gladiator 2 for really even like, I didn't mind it as a movie. Like I actually had a fine time watching it, but it's kind of like, what the fuck? Well, maybe it's just like an example of like, what are we even trying to do? Why are we making a Gladiator 2 20 years later, 25 years later? There's no reason. And not only that, it's like, okay, you're going to make a sequel to Gladiator. We're going to go back to the Roman Empire. That's cool. Like, and that is genuinely why I had a good time. It's like, it's fun to be in the Roman Empire, like in that era, and then obviously have, great performances and stuff. Pedro Pascal has no business being in that movie. He's like barely in it at all. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Denzel Washington's great though. But the thing is, it spends so much of its time trying to be a sequel, like capital S sequel to Gladiator, without ever really using any. It really wants you to think about how great Gladiator 1 was in a movie that's clearly does not have the ability to live up to that, because what's so powerful about that first Gladiator movie is your connection to Maximus. Like, you feel for that character, and it's like, no line maybe hits harder than, father of a murdered wife, husband of a murdered wife, father of a murdered son. Like that sequence is so powerful because,
I will have my vengeance
in this life or the next. Yeah, it's so badass, right? Like, but you care about Maximus as a character. It's so sad, Jeremy. Like, it doesn't need to be this way. And anyway, Ridley Scott can still make good movies. I think we know that to be true. This just isn't really like, and it's not even a bad movie. It's just like, it annoys me that they tried to make a sequel that needed to be so directly linked to the first Gladiator, when it could have been just any really cool Gladiator story as a sequel, with like the same levels of production and the eye for action and all the stuff that Ridley Scott can do. But instead, it's like, hey, think about Gladiator 1 constantly throughout this movie, but we're gonna be worse than it. Okay, and then lastly on my disappointments list, Joker Folie à Deux, and not because I think the movie's particularly bad, but because, and I'm not like mad at the movie like some people are, but I do think it is a little bit of a fuck you from what's the director's name? Todd Phillips, because he's essentially admitted as such, and the movie states it pretty plainly and clearly, that like, it does not give a shit about you as a viewer. In fact, it doesn't like you. And I think that's fine. You want to have that message, go ahead, but you didn't have to make a movie to do that. And I think that's why it's like it rubs people the wrong way. He basically went out and made a movie that said, "Hey, all you people that like the first one, you're stupid for liking it." Which, again, you can have that take. In fact, we have directors today. People like we just talked about with Gladiator 2, who probably feel that way about some of their movies. Where it's like, I'm so sick of this. You guys are stupid for liking this. But they didn't go out and make a movie designed to tell you how stupid you are for liking the first one, and I think that's a bold choice. Do I agree largely with like their sentiment? No. I kind of see where they're coming from, but it's like you just didn't need to make a movie out of that. And I think that's a shame. Okay, so quick couple honorable mentions before I get into my top 3. Transformers 1, the best Transformers movie in like, I don't know, since the first one. I don't know, like since the first Bay movie, probably, right? Jeremy, would you say that's fair?
No.
You don't think it's as good as that?
No.
It's pretty freaking cool, though. Where would you rank it then? Like, is it better than? Is it at least next to or behind? Like, immediately, if you're gonna rank them, it's like for you probably the Bay movie, then the '84 movie, then this one, or how would you rank it?
It's probably the Bay movie, like the first 2 or
Transformers.
3.
You're gonna include the 2 and 3 in there.
Movie.
2, which is maybe one of the worst movies ever.
The trilogy with Shia.
Okay. I really don't. I feel like they take a massive drop from the first movie.
They do.
Yeah.
It's a Harry Potter situation after 3.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But not, I mean, worse, I would say. Harry Potter movies, like, they get bad, but they don't get as bad as the Transformers movies get. Think of a subtitle for one of them. Like, what was it? Like, Age of Extinction was one. That's not even the worst one, but that movie sucks. There is there's one about like the Knights of something or whatever. That one anyway, they're wild movies, and I don't want to talk about that. Anyway, Transformers 1 is better than I think all those movies, because it has great performances. Really, it looks really, really good. Sets up these characters in a way, explores these characters in a way we have never really seen before, and I think that's exciting for a franchise when it's around for fucking 40 years. And again, another example of a movie that's like, man, I wish more people had seen that, because I would have liked to see more from that stuff. And it looks really great. Like, it's got that Spider-Verse inspiration going for it. And I again, a shame that it failed. Conclave. This is that Pope movie that came out, and I think that movie's freaking great. It's really fun from hey, are you an adult who likes the idea of exploring how people make decisions about power? Then Conclave is your kind of movie. It is not a broadly appealing film, I don't think, but it's very good. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Cool to be back in the Planet of the Apes movies again. Not their best one by any stretch of the imagination, but still looks amazing. And kind of some fun ideas in there. Alien Romulus, similar to the Planet of the Apes stuff. It's just kind of cool to be back in the alien world that feels much more in line with the alien stuff that we like. I actually like Prometheus and I can't remember what its sequel, Alien something, Covenant, in their own way, but this is so much more aliens-esque, and looks really cool. There's a scene where someone has the acid blood cut through their stomach, basically, through their chest cavity, and it is extremely unsettling, to say the least. There's some it is one of the scarier movies I've seen in the last while, especially in theaters. I don't see scary movies, but I'll make exceptions for alien movies. And it was really fun. I know that it made some weird decisions about certain things, ultimately largely successful. So I think we shouldn't really hold it against these maybe minor mistakes that I think if they could do it again probably wouldn't do. So I'm not going to hold it against them. I would like to see what comes from them next. And then let's get into my top 3, and then we can call it a year. We might not get to the Oscar nominations, but that's okay. We have a whole podcast that we do around the Oscars and the nominations specifically. We will do, or try to do, like we typically do, our Oscar pre-Oscars podcast, where we, in an effort to try to see as many of the Best Picture nominees this year. Jeremy, I've only seen 2 of the 10. That's usually a bad sign. That's a lot of movies to watch in a short amount of time. Are you going to attempt to try to watch the Best Picture movies this year?
No.
Oh, man, that's a bummer. Either way, we will have a podcast that we'll put in our predictions for the picks. Talk about the movies we have seen off the Best Picture noms. Any little stories about that. Our pre-Oscars podcast, always a fun one here. Look forward to that. Anyway, we'll talk about the noms in another time. But here's my top 3 movies of 2024. Starting at number 3, Civil War. And man, again, maybe it's a sentiment of like, it really hit the nail on the head in terms of like capturing the feeling of like what this idea of a new modern American Civil War might evoke in you. Alex Garland is really good at really everything. He's a great writer, great director, but and he writes and directs this. He does it through the lens of reporting, and I think it makes it even more clear how messed up the world is today. And I think that's really it's upsetting. I think it's supposed to be upsetting. It doesn't draw any conclusions really. It leaves it up to you to decide. And I think largely the people who've seen it kind of get it. I think there are some people who don't kind of get it. But it is I think there's like moments in that movie that are going to stick with me for a really long time, and I don't think about that with like a lot of movies. The scene with Jesse Plemons, I think there's a lot of that. Jesse Plemons, who I don't think got a Oscar nom for it, but probably deserved it for the one scene that he's in Civil War. It's so good, it's so unsettling. It just makes me concerned about where we are today, and I think it's a good reflection of it, and it's a really good movie because of it. Dune Part 2 is my number 2 film of 2024. Jeremy, I don't know, what is there more, like, we talked a lot about Dune. I'm not going to get into like a lot of the details here, but like, what do you think is about Dune Part 2 that makes like these movies so good? I mean, you talked about like, yeah, maybe they're not as good as the Lord of the Rings movies, but they're still pretty great. So what do you think it is that is doing that?
It just all the elements that contribute to the world building, and obviously you have Denis Villeneuve at the helm, and fantastic music. Like the music is just so
iconic too, right? Like,
oh yeah, I have the first
it's just all those
score on Hans Zimmer's score on vinyl, because
it's Hans Zimmer. So anything Hans Zimmer does is just always crazy. So
it is actually true. Like
that movie, and excited for the third.
Yeah, like, and is that they're committed to that for sure? We know that for real, or is that still kind of like maybe we'll see from Denis?
I don't know if it's scheduled, but I think it's happening.
I sure hope so. I think that would be kind of like a maybe, again, hard to say whether it would be able to achieve the levels of what the Lord of the Rings, which is apparently is the new podcast high bar for what films can be, which I think is not that far off. I think most people would probably agree with that. But I mean, in general, to get a sci-fi epic of this nature to finish the trilogy like that would be pretty cool, especially considering, as far as I understand it, the third book is so weird that I would really like to see how they manage to do it, because I don't even know if it's possible, to be honest. Again, I have someone who's not read the book, but to try to like finish the saga in a way that like makes it a cohesive whole is not an easy task. And I worry that it can't be done, and that we'll be left with like 2.5 good movies. Okay, and then lastly, and this maybe shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who's been listening to this podcast or even this podcast alone. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is my number one movie of the year, and I'll tell you why. It's because I came out of this movie so high on how awesome it was. It really, you know how, Jeremy, like the next movie from Christopher Nolan is going to be The Odyssey? You know, like that this like epic scale thing that's so big that it's to try to wrap your head around the scale of it on screen. It only Christopher Nolan could do, right? Well, I present to you that it's already been done by another all-time master of their craft in George Miller in Furiosa Mad Max Saga, because it is so big in scale, it covers so much time, and it sounds good, it looks good, its action is badass. There's only, sure, you could argue that there's a couple moments where it looks a little CGE, and that's a shame. But on the whole, this movie looks so fucking good that I get mad when people say, "Oh, I think it looks bad." Like they think it looks ugly. It's like, go watch that war rig scene again from Furiosa, and tell me that scene looks bad. It does not. It looks great. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is not the reason you go see this movie. She's fine in it, despite being the titular character. Chris Hemsworth, on the other hand, as Dementus, is such a compelling villain character that goes through these wild changes throughout this whole thing. It also provides this glimpse into the world that we get before, because this is a prequel to Fury Road. So it makes Fury Road a better movie. It makes the weight of Fury Road adds to it's like they're so complementary to each other. It's great. I just think of, like, there's this one shot that sticks in my brain a lot, which is like Dementus and his motorcycle gang cruising around this like giant dune, and I can feel the motorcycle engines like vibrating the theater because the sound was so deep and so like. And then the final moment where it's just like a face-off between Furiosa and Dementus, between Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth, is so good, Jeremy. Like, I know that you know that this movie is good, but I'm just like, I need to tell people, we need to take every opportunity we can to tell as many people as we can that this movie's fucking awesome. It's rock and roll distilled into film, and I just can't understand for the fucking life of me why people didn't go see this movie. I don't get it. Anyway, that's my number one movie of 2024. Any qualms with that choice? Jeremy, hello?
Oh.
Okay, I hear you. Any qualms with that choice?
I said none whatsoever.
Okay. Well, good. Any final thoughts on Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, before we turn the page into 2025 and never look back? Burn the book.
It will live on forever.
In infamy?
Yeah.
It's a movie that I will add to my physical collection. I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you that right now. I will have a 4K Blu-ray of Furiosa Mad Max Saga on my shelf. How often I'll watch it, because I don't really watch a lot of movies, it's hard to say. but it needs to be honored in that way. Okay, that's it. I mean, I really wanted to do this podcast just to remind people to watch Furiosa again. So with that now done, I don't really have anything left to say. As I said before, we will look to cover the Oscars and all the nominations in a future episode. Stay tuned for that. We have the film club next week, if we hit our schedule and we hit our timing. Other than that, no new small screen Star Wars for the next little bit. I think the next thing is going to be Visions Season 3. That's the Japanese anthology series, Star Wars themed anthology series. So that's going to be a little bit. I feel like it's a few months out yet. Andor Season 2, though, that's later this year. So be excited about that because that's the best stuff you can really ask for out of Star Wars. And it's so good. We'll see if Season 2 is able to continue that trend. And other than that, we've got lots to talk about. Jeremy, we haven't even had a chance to talk about the Nolan stuff. We will do so on a more traditional news episode coming up. And if in terms of like special episodes still to do, we do have a 200th episode, like numbered episode to do. And I have a fun, another, I guess, retrospective look back that I have planned for that episode. When that'll happen, I don't know yet. I'd like to get a news episode in first. So other than that, thank you all for listening for the last year. And I know this is a bit late because we're coming into the end of January, especially for like a look back episode, but you have to work on the schedule that we got. So sorry about that. We will be back with more TOB all of this year through the year of our Lord 2025 and beyond. If things go well, big plans for the show. I always say that, but I think this year for real. We'll see. We added the teleprompter, Jeremy, which I know you haven't seen in person yet, but I'm excited about that. How that is going to impact our live stuff. I think it's going to help. I'm already enjoying using it a lot more than I thought I would, and I thought I was going to enjoy it a lot. So that's my my endorsement for the Elgato prompter, which I think is a great device, and really happy that we added it to the tech stack that we got here for the podcast. So, yeah, big things for the show. Thank you for listening. We will be back with more very soon.